Hey there guys, how's it going? So, I just got back from the movie theatre. We went to see Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, I personally felt really compelled to go and see this movie and support it, and there are a couple of major reasons why. First of all, last week, you guys might recall, the movie Turds of Prey got released, and yeah, it tanked badly at the box office, and as a result of that, in order to save this movie from further embarrassment, the fans of Turds of Prey, all 5 of them, decided to try and sabotage Sonic the Hedgehog because obviously they couldn't face the possibility of Sonic the Hedgehog movie smashing Turds of Prey at the box office, which of course it inevitably did. So the campaign against Sonic the Hedgehog, not only did it backfire on them, but it compelled more people, just like myself, to go and see Sonic the Hedgehog. This movie actually really did very well, and I saw it in a packed theatre. And the other reason why I wanted to go see this movie, why I felt compelled to support it, is because I have to give a massive shout out to the director of this movie. Because when this movie was initially supposed to come out, it was supposed to come out late last year, and I'm sure most of you are aware that the marketing for the movie did not go down well. The initial cut of the movie, you know, the initial design of Sonic and the way that the CGI looked and whatnot was atrocious, and it got bashed and criticised to no end, and rightfully so. And rather than do what most directors nowadays would have done and attack the fans and call them man babies and throw a bitch fit over it and say, no, this movie isn't for you, and, you know, basically just attack the fans, attack the viewing audience, and, you know, doom your movie to fail before it even releases. No, this director actually did the logical and rational thing and said, okay, I'm going to listen to my viewing audience. Okay, I'm going to listen to the people who are fans of the source material, the Sonic fans, you know, the fans of these types of movies, the fans of these kids' movies, you know, the people who are going to be buying tickets and paying for the movie, the people who are going to be financially supporting this product. Rather than attack these people and call them man babies and call them misogynists and this, that and the other, I'm actually going to go back to the drawing board, delay the movie, and make a few tweaks here and there and make the movie look better. And I'm so glad that they did. I'm so thankful that they did, because this movie looks so much better than it would have done initially. They fixed Sonic's design. They went back to the more classic Sonic look, you know, and based him on of course, the video game version rather than the new version that they'd come up with. The video game Sonic is very much the design of Sonic that's in this movie. And overall, this movie just looks so much better than the initial marketing made it out to be. This movie's really good. I really enjoyed it. As far as kids movie goes, you know, I do like a lot of kids movies. I like a lot of animated features, and very rarely though do I like a mixture of both. You know, when you have live action characters and CGI characters on screen together, most of the time that doesn't usually work. However, there are instances where it does, and this is one of the instances where it really does. So basically, Sonic the Hedgehog is living on Earth. He's living in a place called Green Hills, and he's keeping himself to himself. He doesn't want people to know who he is, and, you know, because he fears that, you know, humans will go after him and try and steal his powers and whatnot. So he's basically living in this remote town, and you know, just living in a cave himself. But he's very lonely, and although he observes people around him and how they behave and stuff, Sonic basically wants to make a friend. You know, he sort of makes a bucket list of things he wants to do, you know, before he leaves Earth or before he passes on and whatnot. You know, wants to make friends, wants to enjoy himself, and he happens upon a unlikely friendship with James Marsden's character, and he basically plays a local sheriff, a local cop in this small town who's planning to move away to San Francisco for a higher paying career and whatnot. And yeah, the two become friends, and the villain of the movie, who essentially goes after Sonic, is played by Jim Carrey, who he plays basically a Dr. Eggman or Dr. Robotnik, whatnot, and he's the main villain of the movie. And the main concern I had going into this movie was that it's a video game adaptation, and they don't usually go down well in movies. Now, funnily enough, interesting that I mentioned video games. You know, speaking of video games, General Tullius from Skyrim is actually in this movie. He's in like one scene at the beginning. I recognized him immediately from his voice. That was General Tullius. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, speaking of video games, man, video game adaptations, and I've spoken about this in the past, they don't tend to translate well to the screen. And the reason for that is because when you're playing a video game is an interactive experience. When you're watching a movie, it's not an interactive experience. Therefore, you're seeing the character and a concept that was designed to interact. You know, it was designed for you to play as that character and sort of inject your own strategy and strategic thinking into what's going on screen. When you're watching that in a movie, it doesn't always work out. A classic example of this, and I reviewed both of these movies, the Hitman movie adaptations. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Hitman video games. They're some of my favourite video games of all time. I reviewed them all on my gaming channel, actually. And on this channel, I reviewed the movie adaptations, and as I pointed out, those games are very much about strategy and careful planning, and you know, they're very intellectually stimulating. They force you to use your brain and stuff like that. So when you make an action movie out of essentially a stealth game, a strategic stealth game, it just doesn't work. It doesn't translate well on screen. I prefer video games in their own medium, if you know what I mean. But on this occasion, I have to say that Sonic the Hedgehog the movie actually really does blow that trend, that unfortunate yet earned reputation that video game adaptations have, completely out of the water. This is a really fun movie. It's really enjoyable. Like I said, I saw this in a packed theater. There were plenty of, you know, parents with their kids, and everybody was laughing, everybody was smiling, they enjoyed themselves. I went to see it with my girlfriend, and she's a huge Sonic the Hedgehog fan. You know, she's played all the games. You know, she grew up with them and whatnot, and yeah, she's a big fan of the character. And she loved this movie. Like, towards the end of this movie, you know, certain things are revealed and certain things happen, and there's certain fan service and things that pop up which I won't spoil, but she was geeking out at it, and even I was too, because although I'm not massively into Sonic, I have played a bunch of the games and I do know the characters and the lore and whatnot, so even I was geeking out a bit at times during this movie, and I really enjoyed this movie, man. And it just goes to show you that even a concept that is so simple like Sonic the Hedgehog can be translated onto screen, and as long as you make it fast-paced and entertaining, well acted and well written, and don't take it too seriously, the movie can be enjoyable. You know, this is a movie that's delightfully self-aware. It knows what it is. Okay, there's not too many like tropes in this movie. It doesn't have like a lot of the shit that most adaptations have nowadays, where they have to have forced humor and you know, tons of pop culture references and stuff like that. There's not a lot of that in this movie. I guess if I was to pick one criticism of the movie, it's maybe Jim Carrey as the villain. I'm not a big fan of Jim Carrey. I've never liked Jim Carrey in movies. If I'm being honest, I'm just not a fan of the guy personally. I know that you guys might disagree. I know he has been in some very successful comedies in the past, but I was personally never a big fan of him. I've never been a big fan of his movies. I've never liked him as an actor. So him as the villain was over the top, and I get it. It's a Sonic movie. You know, obviously Eggman is an over the top villain, you know, by his very concept. But again, I think they could have picked maybe an actor who looks a little bit more like Eggman. But to be fair, there is a scene towards the end of the movie where he does look more like the classic Eggman. But yeah, I just think that other actors could have done a better job. But whatever, that's just a nitpick. I know a lot of people enjoyed it. You know, most of the people in the theatre seem to enjoy Jim Carrey's portrayal. I guess I'm just not a big fan of him as an actor personally, but the movie isn't ruined by that. You know, he does have some funny scenes here and there, and some of the dialogue from him is quite funny, where he's, you know, the way he sort of belittles people and talks to them and whatnot. It's quite funny. Some of the CGI is pretty good. There's a couple of chase sequences. I like the scenes where they basically slow down time and have Sonic using his super speed to do some funny things. There's a hilarious scene where Sonic gets into a bar fight, and that's a really funny scene. Probably my favourite scene of the movie. It was really funny, and he sort of uses his super speed there, and it's a very comical and over the top scene. And you know, the dynamic between him and James Marsden. And I'm guessing that James Marsden likes doing these types of movies, because he was in that terrible movie with Russell Brand. You guys remember that movie Hop? It was like a movie about the Easter Bunny where it was James Marsden and then Russell Brand as a CGI bunny, and it was, again, it's a similar sort of thing. He must like interacting with CGI characters and whatnot in kids movies, but that movie was awful. This movie is definitely a lot better than that, and I just had a blast watching it, man. I just thought that it was, like I said, it's a delightfully self-aware movie. It looks fantastic. Like, the design was so much more improved from the initial concept. You know, the original concept, like if they'd have just basically ignored the constructive criticism and released this in its state that it was before last year, this would have been a 2 out of 10, maybe even a 1 out of 10, just based on the way it looked. But thankfully they improved the graphics and the character models in the movie and made it look more like the video game, and made it look more like the classic Sonic and the Sonic from the video game that we all know and love. And I just thought that this was a delightfully entertaining, fast-paced, enjoyable, heartwarming movie. Had no issue with it, really. I mean, look, it's not a great movie. I'm not saying that this is a masterpiece that everybody should go out and see. Obviously, if you don't like animated movies, if you don't like kids movies, you're not going to enjoy this. Okay, you know, there's a couple of fart jokes and some immature stuff here and there, but for the most part, this is a fun movie. It's a movie I enjoyed. It's a movie I would recommend if you just want to have a fun time. There's no politics in this movie. There's no SJW bullshit. Okay, this isn't Turds of Prey. You know, this, and even Detective Pikachu had some of that SJW shit, which I didn't like, and this is definitely a much better adaptation than that was. I enjoyed this movie a lot. I give this movie a solid 7 out of 10. I've got no real issue with it. So yeah, 7 out of 10. Go and see this if you want to see a fun, fast-paced movie. Some fun action sequences. There's some decent comedy. It's a fun movie. It's an enjoyable movie. And it has a great ending, by the way. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. God bless.